You think you know what mass is. You've carried it, you've lifted it, you've felt it pull you down when you're tired. Mass is the stuff inside things, the heaviness, the resistance, the thing that makes a rock and a feather. You imagine mass like a property stamped onto objects like color or shape, something they have, something that belongs to them. But you're wrong. Mass isn't what you think it is. It isn't in things. It doesn't sit inside atoms like marbles in a bag. And the reason you feel weight, that has almost nothing to do with what mass actually is. Feynman knew this. He spent years trying to explain it. And every time, people nodded and then went right back to their old picture, because the truth is uncomfortable. The truth is that mass isn't a substance. It isn't a property. It's a question the universe answers. And the answer depends on what you're asking. You think mass is simple. You think you understand it. You don't. You open your hand. You hold a stone. You feel its weight. You feel it press into your palm. And somewhere in your mind, you believe the mass is in there, inside the stone, packed into its atoms, concentrated, real. This is the first lie. Not a lie you were taught, a lie you assumed, because mass feels local. It feels like a property that belongs to the object. Like the stone has mass the way it has color or texture or temperature. But ask yourself, where is it? Point to the mass, not the atoms, those are structures, arrangements, clouds of probability. Point to the actual mass, the thing you think is making the stone heavy. You can't, because mass is not a substance. It's not hidden in the nucleus. It's not a little ball of heaviness tucked between protons. When you zoom in, when you look closer and closer, you don't find mass. You find fields. You find interactions. You find relationships. And here's the part that breaks the picture. Most of what you call mass isn't even there in the way you imagine. Take a proton. You think it's heavy because it's made of 3 quarks, and quarks have mass. Fine. Except the quarks inside a proton account for less than 1% of the proton's mass. Less than 1%. The rest is energy. The energy of massless gluons holding the quarks together. The energy of the force field binding the system. The motion, the tension, the interaction. That's what you're feeling when you hold the stone. You think you're holding matter. You're holding energy pretending to be matter. And it gets stranger, because even that 1%, the actual mass of the quarks, doesn't come from anything inside them. It comes from the fact that they interact with something else. Something everywhere. A field you can't see, can't touch, can't remove. The stone in your hand isn't heavy because it contains mass. It's heavy because the universe is answering a question about resistance. And the stone is just the place where that answer appears. You thought mass was a thing. It's not. It's a reply. Push the stone. Go ahead. Push it across the table. Feel it resist. You think that resistance is the mass. You think the stone is fighting back because it has mass inside it. Because mass is the thing that doesn't want to move. But here's what you're not asking. What is resisting? You say the stone resists. Fine. But the stone is just atoms. And atoms are just particles. And particles are just, what? Little hard spheres? No. Fields. Excitations. Probability clouds with no edge, no surface, no thing to push against. So what are you actually pushing? You apply a force, the stone accelerates or doesn't, and from that refusal to accelerate, you infer mass. You measure the resistance, and you call it a property. You write it down. This stone has mass. But you didn't find mass. You found a number, a ratio. Force divided by acceleration. That's it. That's all mass is in this context, a measure of how much the object refuses your push. And now the discomfort starts. Because if mass is just resistance to acceleration, then mass doesn't exist until you push. It's not sitting there waiting. It's not a property the stone carries around. It's a response. The universe's answer to your question, how hard is this to move? You don't like that. You want mass to be intrinsic. You want it to be real in the way a rock is real. But when you push the stone in deep space, no gravity, no air, no friction, it still resists. Same mass, same refusal. Why? What is it resisting against? There's nothing there. No medium, no ether, no substance for it to push back into, and yet it resists. This is Newton's first law haunting you. An object in motion stays in motion unless acted upon. But why? Why does it take force to change motion? Why doesn't the stone just do what you ask? You have no answer. Physics has no answer. We just call it inertia and move on. We say the stone has inertial mass and that's why it resists. But that's circular. That's just naming the mystery. Here's the truth. You've never touched mass. You've only ever felt its refusal. You've only ever seen the universe say no when you try to accelerate something. And that no isn't coming from inside the stone. It's coming from somewhere else. Now drop the stone. It falls. You watch it accelerate toward the ground. And you think, that's mass. That pull, that heaviness, the way it wants to go down. Wrong again. What you're feeling isn't mass, it's weight. And weight is a liar. Stand on a scale. It says you weigh 70 kilograms. You believe that number is measuring your mass, but it's not. It's measuring how hard the ground is pushing up on you. It's measuring a force, a resistance between you and the earth. Your mass? The scale has no idea what your mass is. Go to the moon. Step on the same scale. Now it says 12 kilograms. Did your mass change? No. Did the amount of you change? No. Did atoms vanish from your body? No. What changed is the strength of the conversation between you and the ground beneath you. The moon pulls less. The ground pushes less. The scale reads less. But you are identical. And here's the part that should bother you. Weight isn't even a property of you. It's a property of the relationship between you and the planet you happen to be standing on. Float in deep space. No ground. No scale. No pull. What do you weigh? Nothing. Zero. Does that mean you have no mass? No. It means weight was never mass to begin with. Weight is just the local accident of being near something large, a coincidence of proximity, and yet you've spent your entire life conflating the two. You've used the word heavy to mean massive. You felt the pull of the earth and assumed that pull was revealing something intrinsic about the object, but the stone doesn't want to fall. It has no preference for down. Gravity isn't a desire. It's a warping, a bending of space-time around mass, around your mass, around the Earth's mass. And the stone is just doing what anything does in curved space-time. It follows the straightest path. You think the Earth is pulling the stone, but nothing is pulling. The stone is moving freely. It's you standing here, being pushed by the ground, who's accelerating. You're the one being held in place by a force. The stone is fine. And that weight you feel in your hand before you drop it, that's not the stone's mass. That's the Earth accelerating into your hand at 9.8 meters per second squared, constantly, and your hand refusing to move. You think you feel heaviness. You feel a conversation, a negotiation, a refusal, and still you haven't touched mass itself. Here's where it gets worse. You push the stone. It resists. That's inertial mass, the refusal to accelerate. You drop the stone, it falls. That's gravitational mass, the response to gravity. And for centuries, we pretended those were the same thing. They're not. They have no reason to be. No logical reason, no structural reason. They measure completely different questions. One is about resisting change. The other is about responding to curvature. Why would those numbers match? But they do, every time, perfectly. A kilogram of lead resists acceleration exactly as much as a kilogram of lead responds to gravity. Same number, same mass. You think that's obvious. You think, of course, they're the same. It's the same object. But you're not thinking clearly. Inertial mass is the stone's answer when you try to shove it. Gravitational mass is the stone's answer when space-time bends around it. Those are different conversations, different interactions, different aspects of reality. Why do they give the same answer? Galileo dropped objects from towers. They fell at the same rate. Heavy, light, didn't matter. You learned this in school, and you nodded. But you didn't feel the strangeness. You didn't ask why a feather and a stone in a vacuum fall together. Because if gravitational mass and inertial mass were different, they wouldn't fall together. The heavier object, gravitationally heavier, would fall faster, but it doesn't. Because the thing that makes it fall harder is exactly canceled by the thing that makes it resist falling harder. That's not a law. That's a coincidence, or it was. Until Einstein Einstein didn't accept the coincidence. He turned it into a principle. He said, there is no difference between gravity and acceleration. They're the same thing. An elevator accelerating upward in empty space feels identical to an elevator sitting still on Earth. Identical, not similar, not analogous, identical, indistinguishable. Same physics, same forces, same experience. You're sitting in a windowless room. You feel weight. Are you on Earth, or are you accelerating through space at 9.8 meters per second squared? You cannot know. There is no experiment you can do inside that room that will tell you. Gravity and acceleration are not two things that happen to feel alike. They are the same thing, described differently. And that's why inertial mass equals gravitational mass. Not because they're both mass in some deep sense, but because gravity is acceleration. The stone resists your push for the same reason it falls in curved space-time, because resistance to acceleration is the only game in town. But here's the unease. This equivalence wasn't predicted by theory. It wasn't derived. It was observed, then elevated into a postulate. Einstein looked at the accident and said, this is too perfect to be an accident. So he built general relativity around it. And it worked beautifully, consistently. But it didn't explain the equivalence. It just assumed it. It made the coincidence into a foundation. You think that's satisfying. You think that's elegant. But elegance isn't explanation. The equivalence principle isn't a law of nature. It's a confession. We don't know why these two types of mass are the same. We only know that if we assume they are, the math works. The universe could have been different. Inertial mass and gravitational mass could have been unrelated. Objects could fall at different rates. Gravity could have been a force, not a geometry. But it's not, and no one knows why. So where does mass come from? Not the resistance, not the falling. The actual source. The reason an electron has the mass it has. The reason a quark isn't massless like a photon. You want an answer? Physics has one. But you won't like it. It comes from a field. Not a field in the sense of something special, something localized. A field that is everywhere. Right now, in this room, in your body, in the space between atoms, in the vacuum of space that isn't actually empty. The Higgs field, you've heard of it. You've heard it called the God particle, which is marketing, not physics. You've heard it gives mass to particles, and you nodded. But you didn't ask the right question. How does a field give mass? Here's the picture they don't tell you. The Higgs field isn't handing out little packets of heaviness. It's not sprinkling mass onto particles like seasoning. It's resisting their motion. A particle moves through space. If it doesn't interact with the Higgs field, it moves at the speed of light. No resistance, no drag, no mass. A photon does this. It doesn't couple to the Higgs, so it doesn't slow down. It has no mass. But an electron does interact with the Higgs field, and that interaction constant everywhere, unavoidable acts like resistance. The electron tries to move at light speed. The field says no. The electron pushes. The field pushes back. And that resistance, that is what you call mass. Mass isn't a thing the electron has. Mass is what happens when the electron tries to move through a universe that won't let it move freely. You don't like this. You want mass to be intrinsic. You want particles to have mass, not acquire it through interaction. But the universe doesn't care what you want. The Higgs field is not optional. You can't remove it. You can't turn it off. It's a baseline property of space-time itself, like temperature or pressure, except it's not in space, it's woven into space. The vacuum is soaked in it, and different particles interact with it differently. An electron couples to the Higgs weakly, so it has a small mass. A top quark couples strongly, so it has a huge mass, hundreds of thousands of times heavier. Why? Why do particles couple differently? No one knows. We measure the couplings, we write them down, we call them Yukawa couplings, and we put them in the standard model. But we don't derive them, we don't explain them. They're free parameters. Dials the universe turn to specific settings, and we have no idea why those settings and not others. You think the Higgs field explains mass, but all it does is relocate the question. Now, instead of asking, why does an electron have mass, you ask, why does an electron couple to the Higgs field the way it does? Same mystery, different words. And here's the part that should unsettle you. before the Higgs field was confirmed, before 2012, before the Large Hadron Collider, before the discovery particles still had mass, you still had mass. The stone still resisted your push. The Higgs mechanism is our best description of how mass arises, but the mass was always there. The field was always there. We just didn't know it. And that means mass, your mass, the mass you felt your whole life, has always been the product of an interaction you couldn't see, with a field you didn't know existed in a way you still don't fully understand. You thought mass was simple. It's not. It's a field theory. You weigh 70 kilograms. Where does that mass come from? You think atoms, protons, neutrons, electrons. The stuff I'm made of. The particles have mass, so I have mass. Phi. Now explain where the proton's mass comes from. You say quarks. A proton is made of 3 quarks. Quarks have mass from the Higgs field. So the proton's mass is just the sum of the quark masses. No, not even close. A proton weighs about 938 MeV in energy units. The 3 quarks inside it, they contribute about 9 MeV combined. 9 out of 938, less than 1%. So where's the rest? You're not going to like this. The rest is energy, pure energy. The energy of the strong force holding the quarks together. The energy of gluons, massless particles whipping between quarks at relativistic speeds. The energy of the field itself, confined in a tiny space, compressed, violent, seething. That energy has mass. Not because energy is mass, because energy acts like mass. E equals mc squared. Energy resists acceleration. Energy curves space-time. Energy is indistinguishable from mass in every way that matters. So when you hold the stone, when you feel its weight, 99% of what you're feeling isn't matter. It's motion, it's force. It's the frantic, ceaseless dance of massless gluons holding quarks in a prison so small and so energetic that the energy itself becomes mass. You thought you were made of substance. You're made of tension. And it gets worse. Because even that 1%, the actual quark masses from the Higgs field, only accounts for about 1% of you. The rest of your mass, the mass of your bones, your blood, your brain, it comes from binding energy, from the strong force, from gluons, from nothing that has mass on its own. You are not made of heavy things. You are made of massless things, moving so fast, bound so tightly, that their energy pretends to be mass. Your mass is a fiction, a convenient summary, a name we give to the total energy of a system at rest. But there's no rest, not really. Zoom in and everything is moving. Quarks jitter. Gluons flicker in and out of existence. Fields oscillate. Even in the ground state, even in the vacuum, there is no stillness. And all of that motion, all of that energy, all of that chaos, it adds up, it integrates. And when you try to push it, when you try to accelerate it, it resists. Not because there's a thing inside resisting, because energy resists, because space-time curves around energy, because the universe treats energy and mass as the same currency, and you've been spending your whole life thinking you were made of one when you're actually made of the other. You think you're solid. You're a bound state of massless force carriers. You think you're matter. You're packaged light. And here's the final turn. If you could somehow remove the Higgs field, if you could turn off the interaction that gives quarks and electrons their bare mass, you wouldn't disappear. You'd still be here. Almost all of your mass would remain, because the Higgs field is responsible for less than 1% of you. The rest comes from the fact that massless things, when confined and accelerated, become massive. Mass isn't the gift from the Higgs field. Mass is what energy looks like when it can't escape.